Mobility, a common theme woven into the very fabric of human history. From ancient wanderers to modern explorers, our instinct to move, to seek something greater, and to grow has always driven us forward. Imagine a journey into
I don't know.
pathways of boundless opportunities and endless possibilities. A collective future where the
Stop.
vibrant rhythms of the Caribbean, rich culture, and welcoming community
Welcome to the Cinnamon Model, one of the many stunning designs in Project 500. The home offers 944 square feet of living space, not including the veranda. It includes 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a dedicated laundry storage area, all centered around an open kitchen, living, and dining space for everyday comfort. In the current view, would work at 70% completion, having rough plumbing already in place, electrical, interior walls, and ceiling finishes to be installed soon.
Mobility, a common theme woven into the very fabric of human history. From ancient wanderers to modern explorers, our instinct to move, to seek something greater, and to grow has always driven us forward. Imagine a journey into pathways of boundless opportunities and endless possibilities. A collective future where the vibrant rhythms of the Caribbean, rich culture, and welcoming community create unforgettable experiences. Beyond citizenship by investment, we believe in our collective investment of time, resources, and energy that fosters innovation, creates jobs, and enriches lives, driving the growth of an entire nation. The Investment Migration Agency Grenada boasts over a decade of exceptional service and remains committed to guiding you toward global mobility and economic freedom through investment. Your journey becomes our shared story of progress and prosperity. This is an invitation to be part of something greater, something enduring. Begin your journey at imagrenada.gd. IMA Grenada. Unlock the possibilities.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of DMs with PM. I am Aruna Neptune, and it is an absolute pleasure to be your host for this evening's program. Again, our apologies for the late start. We had a little technical difficulties, so I think we're good to go now. So without any further ado, let me say welcome to those of you viewing the live stream, and of course, if you're listening via radio, shout outs to Vibe, Star, WeFM, GBN, Top FM, and remember, you can also view on YouTube and Facebook. As always, we entertain your questions. You have the opportunity to speak directly with the Prime Minister, who is in studio with us this evening. And because we wasted so much time, we are going to get right into it. So for those of you already here, please do us a favor and share the live to your friends and family at home and, of course, in the diaspora. They too will have the opportunity to be part of this interesting program. Without any further ado, I want to say special evening and welcome to our Prime Minister. Back at it again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and first time you're hosting, so it's a pleasure to have you as well, and I look forward to an entertaining and educating event. We already had some entertainment because we were speaking to each other, not realizing the rest of the world wasn't hearing us. So, but sometimes these things happen, so I'm happy that we're able to rectify it and we're good to go.
Fantastic. And remember, folks, you can call us via 423-3104. 473-423-3104. This is the number you can WhatsApp or you can call and, of course, get to ask the Prime Minister your question directly. The only thing we ask of you is to please keep the questions short and to the point so that the Prime Minister will have the opportunity to answer as much questions as possible. So again, we ask that you keep it short and to the point so that the Prime Minister can get to as many questions as possible. Alrighty, well, I'm going to start the ball rolling with my first question. I've been listening for the past couple of weeks, and I had to get in on this segment with, of course, it's almost 3 years being in office, being the Prime Minister of Grenada. And you know, it's no 8 to 4, it's not a regular 9 to 5. I'm sure it's way more demanding. So, and on top of that, you have the jobs to deal with, of course, adding to the stress. But how has it been? How do you de-stress? How do you cope with all of that and manage to do what you do?
Well, I should say first, the job is no stress. So, but second, squeezing as much time as you can with family and friends. Sometimes not as many friends because even when you go out, it's all work. But I try to spend time with my kids whenever I can. As I was saying, when we were talking earlier, I like cooking as well, so that's an opportunity to relax on Saturdays.
And we also spoke about his favorite dish to cook, which is?
Soup, any kind of soup except pork. Anything to do with pork, I don't eat pork.
You don't eat pork?
No, no pork.
Well.
But lots of fish is good. Lots of any other type of soup that is regular Grenadian, pumpkin, callaloo, etc.
I never put you down as a soup man.
Yeah, I'm a soup man. I eat soup every day, 5 days a week at least.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm seeing hands going up attesting to that. So
Yeah. It's probably a challenge for a lot of people. I think my kids find it painful to watch me eating soup every day.
children don't do too well with soup.
But yeah, and then there's the beach, a walk on the beach. I like music. I like reading. I don't get as much time to read. So it's just finding the little spaces in between to try and relax a little, and then I'm good to go.
Okay. So, Jabs, the PM says he has no problem with you, but you did say time and place.
Time, place, season for everything. Even the Bible says so.
So we work with that. So my next question is, of course, you travel extensively. You've been to numerous places. And one of the things that I wanted to know is, when you travel and then you come back home, you see so many different things. And I always say to folks, it's important to at least travel one time in your life, get different experiences. You get to see different things, observe different cultures, and you see, development in certain areas. In terms of Grenada, when you come home from any of your trips, what is one of the wishes that you have for this tri-island state of ours? What do you want to see the most out of your tenure or beyond that?
Yeah. Well, if there's a single wish, it's to see us be successful. But to get there are a couple of wishes. The first starts with our health. We have to be healthy. If you're not healthy, then almost everything else is going to be a challenge. So if you're healthy, then you can be productive. If you're productive, you can be successful, and then you can be happy. And you can share that happiness by helping others who are either less fortunate or who just need a guidance or a helping hand along the way. And I think if we do that, and in a sense, that's what Vision 75 is about. It's about a healthy nation that could be a prosperous nation, and that could be a successful nation, and a nation that is united. Because ultimately, you want to feel proud as a Grenadian. You might be small, but you want to have a sense of accomplishment, a sense of achievement, a sense of pride in the fact that you belong to this small state that is successful.
Okay, fantastic. Tell you what, folks, we have to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get directly into some of your DMs, and we have quite a few, so we need to get a head start. Back after this.
It's like the water pure and clean. It's a comfort anytime you need it. It's for everybody, fresh and green. You can count on us, there's nothing like it. It's homegrown. It's island pure. It's homegrown.
And we are back. And of course, like we said, we're getting directly into the DMs. And when you do call, remember 423-3104. Again, we ask that you keep your questions as short as possible. And Mr. PM, we're asking the same of you for your responses, so we can get as many questions in as possible. So we have the very first question from Paul Miller. And he's asking, what are the plans to resume the Kawana Bay project?
We hope to resume it shortly. We have entered into an agreement with a developer. That's the developer of the Silver Sands Hotel, Mr. Naguib Sawiri, and his team. And we are in the final stages of working out that development. And I'm optimistic that hopefully, if construction work doesn't start this year, that it will resume early next year. So plans are on stream for the development to be continued.
Okay. We have another one on the WhatsApp. It's to do with housing and infrastructure. And the question is from Planet Neptune. Really? Planet Neptune ask, does government have any plans for the large number of abandoned buildings owned by non-residents?
The answer is no, but it is something that has come up. We have to actually be able to know for sure that the buildings are owned by non-residents. But even if they're owned by residents or non-residents, you can't do anything with someone's property unless there's an agreement. But it might be an opportunity for us to see whether we can address some of the housing challenges we have. But at this stage, no. But it's a good a good thought from Planet Neptune for us to perhaps look at what can be done about them.
Okay. We have another question that falls under infrastructure, and Champ is asking, what is the status of the St. Patrick Road project that stopped abruptly, and what's the update on the Soteres Breakwater project?
The update on the Soteres Breakwater is that we are proceeding. The designs have been completed. The environmental and social impact assessment has been completed as well. We are in discussions with the Caribbean Development Bank to fund the project, and the next stage will be to tender for a contractor. Because of the nature of the work, obviously it's coastal sea defense, we would have to tender it regionally as well because it's a Caribbean Development Bank funded project. But once that tendering takes place, the evaluation happens and then the contract is awarded. I am not sure which St. Patrick Road project he's referring to that ended
It's not
abruptly,
very clear.
so I'm not sure if I could actually answer it. But in St. Patrick, there is certainly need for a lot of infrastructure reinforcement. There's a lot of damage to the bridges and culverts as a result of the floods and the heavy rains, and the team at the Ministry of Infrastructure actually working on some of these.
Okay. All right, so that was from Champ. We have one from Unknown, and Unknown is asking, in your portfolio as Minister with responsibility for civil aviation, can you assist the workers who were laid off by LIAT?
That's a good question. I don't know in my portfolio that I can do so. LIAT was a private company that the government of Grenada had no shares or interest in. The LIAT workers have approached me about whether there's an opportunity for the government to assist them. That would require, obviously, a conversation with the Minister of Finance and the Cabinet to decide whether this is something we want to do. But at this stage, there is no definitive plan in place to address them.
Okay. Under tourism and infrastructure, BJ Charles asked, does your administration have plans to upgrade the cruise ship terminal to accommodate more vessels simultaneously?
The answer is no, because if you pay attention, you'd see that for 6 months of the year, the cruise ship terminal is actually empty. So port terminal infrastructure is very expensive, and unless we can guarantee that there's more and more cruise ships coming, it may not make economic sense to actually spend more money to get a larger cruise terminal that only gives you business for 4 or 5 months of the year. So the answer is no.
Okay, that's a direct answer. Dominic Julian is asking, when will the National Maternity Leave Reform promised for 2025, Q1 2025 be passed, and will it deliver the 16 weeks promised to Grenadian mothers?
I can't give a definite date for when it will be passed in Parliament, but I think that commitment was made. Once the commitment was made, then we expect the law to reflect that. But thank you for that reminder. I believe I will certainly take it to the Attorney General's office and to the Ministry of Social and Community Development to ensure that the next time the question is asked, we can say the legislation has been passed.
Okay. And we have another question here from Wendy Braveboy, and she's asking, have you considered installing speeding ticket cameras along roads to deter dangerous driving?
So the answer is yes. That obviously requires the technology and the investment. We need a comprehensive plan for managing traffic in Grenada. The Transport Commission is working on this. I expect that we would have a draft plan for consideration by the Cabinet and stakeholders shortly.
Okay. And I think we have another one also from Giselle Walker Franklin. She asked, can personal income tax in Grenada be reviewed to consider household responsibilities, and can a tax allowance be implemented for caregivers?
Well, that's a good question. I'm probably stumped a little when she says caregivers. I'm not sure she means wives or mothers who are looking after children, or whether she's actually referring to persons who are who provide caregiving service. So I'm not sure. The truth is, the Income Tax Act does have allowances currently. I can't give you the whole list of all of them, but it does have allowances. So from time to time it's reviewed, and certain things are exempted, or certain things are allowed as deductions when calculating the income tax. So I'm not so sure what is the specific allowance that she's referring to, but allowances are given. The biggest allowance being the fact that the first $3,000 of someone's income is not taxed at all, and it is only after $3,000 that it is taxed.
Okay. All right, and we have another question from Carla George Smith, and she's asking, what is your plan for rebuilding the Sheila Buckmeyer Memorial Library and supporting Grenada's community libraries?
Right, so I will start with the National Library, which she refers to as the Sheila Buckmeyer Library. The entire building, as you know, is a historic building. We are very keen to preserve the building. The redevelopment of the building is currently being looked at both by the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Infrastructure, and the Office of the Creative Affairs, the Ministry of Tourism and Culture as well, because we want to make sure that we can preserve the historical look of St. George's. So it is not going to be a simple project, it is going to be a major one. So we're just asking for a little patience for people to bear with us, but we do intend, as part of a larger St. George's redevelopment, for it to happen.
Okay, and we have another question here from Nicole Anisha, and she's asking, can government-owned lands in St. David's be zoned for commercial development, particularly along Wester Hall or Lassages? Right,
so there's very few government-owned land. I should first point that out. In fact, along Wester Hall, I am not aware of any government-owned land at all. And in Lassages, there's very limited land that is left. But yes, we ideally would want to be in a position where land is zoned, and to a large extent, the Planning and Development Authority would have to help us with some of that, because the challenge we do have is that with little or no zoning, you could have a nice house next to a garage next to a farm, and you could have those challenges. So it will require comprehensive land use management, a lot of stakeholder engagement and cooperation before we can get to the point where we're successful at it.
Okay. So we have one more question, and then we will head to the streets with Norris just a bit, from Darrell Cadet, and he's asking, will anything be done about the concrete spilled along the roadside from Corinth to Tabor Hill due to overfilled trucks?
Well, it's not just Corinth to Tabor Hill, it's all over the roadways in Grenada. And again, it comes back to the comprehensive traffic management plan. It comes back to safety on the roads, and obviously to enforcing and making people responsible for the damage. So Darrell, thank you for the comment. Again, it would require enforcement by law enforcement. It would require the legislation to be passed for us to be able to address that. But even before we get that, education and safety practices by the concrete trucks, drivers, the firms that operate them, including Gravel and Concrete and the private concrete companies. So it is something that I think, it's safety in general. We have to take road safety and safety in the construction industry a lot more seriously so that we can protect each other.
Okay, so we will take a break from answering the questions directly. What we did do was take our cameras to the street, and Norris is up next with this segment called DMs from the Street with Norris. So we'll do that and we'll come right back.
This week we are in Big Parish St. Andrew, and we took our DMs to the streets of Grenville. Let's take a look at some of them.
I am Howard Bain, and I have a question on aviation for you, Mr. Prime Minister. We have heard talk over the years about having a flight school at Pearls Airport. So I just want to find out what is going on with that, if there's anything in the pipeline, what is it that we have in store for us in aviation, because I know there are persons who are interested in aviation here in Grenada, and I just want to find out what's the situation. Are there any movements on a flight school at our Pearls Airport?
It's like the water pure and clean. It's a comfort anytime you need it. It's for everybody, fresh and green. You can count on us, there's nothing like it. It's homegrown. It's island pure. It's homegrown.
Okay, so there we had it, our very first question for DMs from the street. Prime Minister?
Well, it's a very good question. Unfortunately, there are no plans currently in relation to a flight school at Pearls. What I can tell you is that a private businessman here has opened a helicopter service, and currently that service is on the way. So from an aeronautical civil aviation perspective, that is something that is good. The same entity has also made some proposals to the government about supporting them in a Sky Courier project. This is something we are examining to see whether it is something we can do. If that happens, we think it will be a major investment for Grenada in terms of air connectivity and the potential for more aeronautical business here, including the potential for training of pilots and new pilots and so on. But that's it currently. But specifically to Pearls, there are no plans for a flight school there.
Okay. We have another DM from the street, or we'll take the calls. Remember, you can call 423-3104. We love to hear from you. If you have a question you'd like to ask the Prime Minister, you can call us directly on 423-3104. While we await your call, I think we have another question from Princessa Isabel, and she's asking, are there plans to change the Constitution to introduce term limits for Prime Ministers and Governor Generals?
Currently, no. There are no such plans. Grenada has had two referenda on those issues. The population voted no when the matter was brought up. So at this stage, our administration doesn't have any plans to introduce term limits. Personally, I am in favor of term limits. I think it is healthy to have change at the top of the leadership that is time-bound and predictable. That allows other persons to have the ambition to also want to, get to that position as well. And each generation, I think, deserves, in a sense, leadership that is reflective of that generation. But at this stage, there are no plans to change the Constitution to introduce that.
Okay. I think we have a caller online. Caller, good evening and welcome. And please be as brief as possible.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
My name is Shadeen Thomas. I'm a mother of 2 children with disabilities, special needs. Grenada has ratified onto the Convention on the Rights for Persons with Disabilities, yeah? And my children are 16 and 18. So I've dealt with the system for 18 years, you could say. 16 and 18. So I've dealt.
We're not hearing you too clear. Can you repeat what you just said?
Hello?
Yes, we did not hear you quite clearly. Can you just repeat what you just said?
Yeah, you hear me clearly now?
Yes, we hear you now.
Yeah, so I was saying, Grenada has ratified onto the Convention on the Rights for Persons with Disabilities. I'm a mother of 2 children with special needs, 16 and 18 years. So I've been dealing with the system for 18 years, you could say. What changes can I see in my lifetime on the behalf of my children for improvement in health, education, socially, etc., etc.? What does the government have in place so I could see a change? Because over the 18 years, I could say from my experience, there hasn't been any change, or whatever change is done is very mediocre. So I'm appealing on behalf of persons with disabilities who are citizens of Grenada and have rights just as every other individual. What can we see for the benefit of these people?
All right. Thank you so much, caller.
All right, thank you very much. And I obviously, I think you can hear the passion and the emotion in the voice of the caller on the issue. It may be fortuitous, or the caller may actually be aware, but today at the Radisson, the Minister for Social and Community Development, the Honorable Gloria Thomas, was leading the government's delegation as part of a larger stakeholder consultation on the rights of people with disabilities. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend. In fact, someone who works with me has a daughter that has disabilities, so I appreciate, even from my limited engagement with her, the challenges that parents and so on face with their children with disabilities. So to answer the question, I think we are committed to making sure that we leave no one behind. That's the philosophy of our government. And I can't give specifics because obviously it requires, in a sense, a comprehensive review, which is why we're having this stakeholder engagement, as to how we can ensure that we are more inclusive, more empathetic, and put more resources into addressing some of the challenges that persons with disabilities face. And I would think the starting point for a lot of it is, in fact, education. If we're able to ensure that we can educate persons in particular without disabilities to appreciate the need to ensure that we are all-inclusive in our approach to persons with disabilities, I think it will make a significant difference. But obviously, there are a number of things we need to do, from the legislative perspective, from ensuring that from a physical perspective, just in terms of things like access and so on, from the deployment of technology. So whether it's ensuring that even like a show like this, we have someone who could assist persons who are hearing impaired to be able to follow.
It's a
Whether
good
it's
idea.
ensuring that for all national events we have that sort of support, whether it's ensuring that for new buildings, particularly public buildings, that we are able to make sure that there's some form of access for persons with disabilities, for ensuring that we pay attention to their needs from an employment perspective, so that they can be employed if possible and be able to take care of themselves and contribute. So all of these areas are areas that needs to be addressed. I certainly thought the plea for it to happen in the caller's lifetime. I certainly would want it to be happening in my lifetime as well, and I'm sure that Minister Thomas, who's very passionate about this issue, will certainly do everything in her power to begin the process to make sure that there can be real improvement during that time.
Wonderful. We have another caller on the line. Caller, good evening and welcome.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
How are you?
Not too bad.
Wonderful. Go ahead with your question and be brief as possible, please.
Okay, in perspective of Ibrahim Traore, I was wondering if the minister was giving him like a support as a member of the Caribbean, observing how he emancipated his people. That is my question this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Well, I think the answer is, I think for all black people, for all Africans, for people of the diaspora from Africa, I think they need to support the reforms that are taking place and the dramatic changes that are taking place. I think it's obvious. We need to ensure that, as what I would call children of Africa, that we help Africa itself to become a strong and powerful continent for our own sake. Because I've said repeatedly that if you disrespect one black person in Africa or in the Caribbean or in America, then you're disrespecting all. And I think given our history of colonialism, slavery, etc., which still shapes in many respects a lot of what is going on in the world today, particularly in Africa, it's important to ensure that we can support progressive leadership. The population of Africa average is around 20 years old. The average leader of an African country, however, is around 70. So there's almost a 50-year gap there. But for Africa to truly realize its potential, obviously, the power of the young people and young leadership is going to have to be unleashed and supported. And we have an important role to play in the Caribbean in ensuring that we can support that. So the answer is yes.
Okay. We have another caller. Good evening, caller.
Good afternoon. I have two quick questions. One, before the structural adjustment program in the previous administration, we were charged income tax over $5,000. Now we are being charged over $3,000. And if you're falling over in excess of $5,000, you're in two tax brackets. Is there anything that the Prime Minister is doing to at least try to bring us in one tax bracket once you're over $5,000? Or would it remain at two tax brackets? That's my first question. My second concern is the Monge Psychiatric Ward. I've noticed that there are a lot of young people up there, and some of them are housed with persons who are really, I don't know if psychotic is the right word to use, but does the Prime Minister and his ministers have anything in the pipeline in terms of having little units where if you're probably gone up there for a little minor issue, if you just have a little depression, that you can be housed separate from those that are a bit more ill? So, for example, like if, let's say, for example, the hospital, you have this little private block where you can have just a separate little room for yourself if you just have a little depression. Is there anything in the pipeline to kind of have this little separation there? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, caller.
Thank you. I will have to ask the Minister with special responsibility for mental health to address the specific details of it. I know she's, since assuming the portfolio, done significant work to try and improve the state of Monge. And she has raised, in fact, concerns that she was concerned that many of the persons who were being sent there actually should not be sent there at all. And I think that speaks to what the caller is talking about, because sometimes you want to make sure that if you are sending someone to what we call a mental or psychiatric hospital, that they truly belong there, and that some form of lesser intervention is not going to work. So one of the things that the ministers encouraged a lot is the community mental health nurses to ensure that persons don't necessarily have to be at Monge to get the kind of support and services that they need. So that's one. But if it is that there is a need for a deeper evaluation again to see whether or not people are still being sent there when they should not be sent there, or if, as the caller points out, there's an opportunity to then separate what I would call more severe cases from minor cases, I think that is certainly something that is worth pursuing. On the other issue in relation to the tax bracket, currently we do not have any plans to review this, but it comes up all the time. And I've obviously had to say to folks that no government wants to tax for taxing's sake. But the truth is, the government needs revenue to be able to meet its expenditure, and the government is involved in a wide array of things, and the demands that are made on the government more and more is expansive. So any review of the taxing system has to be done in a holistic manner. I think piecemeal, just to deal with, because if you're dealing with income tax, there's VAT, there's customs, it will perhaps require a comprehensive review of the tax structure, which will require significant stakeholder engagement, and then hopefully we can then, it's not always easy because nobody wants to pay taxes, have a consensus as to what is the best tax model for Grenada.
Okay. Nobody likes a tax man. We have another call online. Caller, good evening.
Good evening, Aruna.
Hello.
Good evening, Mr. PM.
Good evening.
Welcome. Go ahead with your question,
My name
please.
Sure. My name is Desi, calling from Boston. I have a short two-part question. What is your plan to expand mental and behavioral health care access to all Grenadians? And what can you do about confidentiality once that person enters a facility for mental or behavioral health care?
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I mean, if it's not happening, then obviously I'd be very disappointed. And it is something that we can check. But once someone enters not just a mental or psychiatric or behavioral hospital, but also a general hospital or a medical clinic, the confidentiality of the process and of any procedure that they go through should be absolute. The medical records, which include mental, psychiatric, or behavioral records of any person, is a private matter between them and the institution and the person providing the service, and there should be no breach or leaking of that. And if that is happening, there obviously are consequences that should occur. People should be held accountable, and professionally they should be disciplined if it is happening. I think some of the mental, psychiatric, and behavioral challenges in Grenada are largely, in many instances, driven by substance abuse, and that includes substances that are available legally, such as alcohol. And so, as you are aware, there are plans afoot to build a new rehabilitation center in Maribo. We are not going to use the old Carlton home site because it's quite easily accessible from the main road and from supermarkets and so on. So this is something we are very eager to proceed with. So plans are afoot to do that. But also they need to ensure that the necessary support is there to assist us in that. But additionally, the prevention is critical. So if we spend time educating our young people in particular about making healthy choices in terms of what we put into our systems or the quantities, because usually it's abuse rather than use per se, we certainly think that will assist us in terms of eliminating the need for persons to ever even get into that point of view. But we stressed a lot on mental health. It's the reason why we've established a Ministry of Mental Health, because we recognize that this is something we need to give full support to our citizens to ensure that they can cope with this, especially coming out of COVID-19, for example. But we don't want to get to the point where you have to be hospitalized or placed in the institution. What we really want to be able to do is make sure we can have interventions even before that, so that less and less persons find themselves having to enter a behavioral or mental or psychiatric hospital.
Fantastic. Viewers and listeners, we are due for another break, but when we return, we will continue with some of your DMs and, of course, your calls. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Mobility, a common theme woven into the very fabric of human history. From ancient wanderers to modern explorers, our instinct to move, to seek something greater, and to grow has always driven us forward. Imagine a journey into pathways of boundless opportunities and endless possibilities. A collective future where the vibrant rhythms of the Caribbean, rich culture, and welcoming community create unforgettable experiences. Beyond citizenship by investment, we believe in our collective investment of time, resources, and energy that fosters innovation, creates jobs, and enriches lives, driving the growth of an entire nation. The Investment Migration Agency Grenada boasts over a decade of exceptional service and remains committed to guiding you toward global mobility and economic freedom through investment. Your journey becomes our shared story of progress and prosperity. This is an invitation to be part of something greater, something enduring. Begin your journey at imagrenada.gd. I am a Grenada. Unlock.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to DMs with PM. And remember, this is the program where you have the opportunity to ask your questions directly via DMs, direct message, or you can call 473-423-3104. I think we're heading back to the street again with Norris to take in some DMs from the street, and the PM will respond.
Hello, my name is Destiny Julian, and my question for you today is, if you were the Prime Minister 10 years ago and you had to make a decision to shape the future of the country, what decision would that have been?
Hi, Destiny. That's actually quite a lovely question. If it's a single decision, I would have built the state-of-the-art modern teaching hospital, because I think it's almost 50. Well, she said 10. It's 10 years overdue. I think had we done so over a decade ago, we would have already completely probably transformed Grenada's healthcare system.
Okay, I believe we have another DM from the street. Okay, so while we await that, I do have a question that I was told to ask you, Mr. PM, and in conversation with someone, they lamented about how difficult it is to do business in Grenada, the ease of business, especially involving the port. And they spoke of having to return numerous times, sometimes for one item, whether it's a stamp, you have to go to this end, that end, and it's literally the entire day. Whether it's to clear a barrel, do something, and it takes away from their productivity and, of course, takes them away from their business to attend to that as well. And they also mentioned, imagine you have to get a package from, let's say, FedEx. You'll have to go to FedEx, go back to the post office to get a stamp, then go back to FedEx to collect your parcel. So what is in the plans, literally, they're asking in terms of making business, ease of business in Grenada?
Well, I would start by saying I agree with the caller or the person who's asking the question about the port. We have to be able to streamline the port and the customs services and the postal corporation, because that's part of the problem. You have three entities taking place. You've got port, you've got customs, and you've got the postal corporation. We have to get to the point where there's one seamless service. That requires the technology of each of these entities to speak to each other. And it requires each of the entities to actually review their processes and to streamline it to make it easier for Grenadians. So this is not about throwing anybody under the bus. I mean, it's been that way, it seems, all lifetimes, but there's no point in simply saying that and not being able to do anything about it. So it is a complaint that I think is justified, and we have to all work together. With stakeholders, you always have friction. Sometimes people have, territory, jurisdiction, those issues, but we all have to bring everybody together to be able to get to the point where the right technology is used, where we can, there are other logistical issues at the port, which makes it a challenge. The port it was built a long time ago, more than half a century. It was built at a time where cargo was what they call bulk cargo. Almost all cargo now is containerized cargo, except for things like barrels and boxes and so on. But almost all of the cargo on the port is via containers. And it wasn't designed as a container port, so the entire reconfiguration of the port needs to take place. So that's part of what we are examining now, including the useful life of the port itself. You notice we don't have crane shows and so on. But outside of issues at the port, customs, and the postal corporation, yes, a lot of the government entities for business needs to be centralized and streamlined. So from the company's registry, or what is called the Corporate and Intellectual Affairs Registry, to the IRD, to NIS, to GIDC, we have to get to the point where more and more we have a one-stop shop, so that when someone forms a company, that automatically triggers the application for the tax identification number. It automatically triggers the application for the national insurance scheme number, etc. If you choose not to trade, fine. But we have to get to the point where all of those things happen. But it also requires, and this is part of what is going to make a difference in a country. It's one thing to have the political will and the desire to do so, but it also requires, in a sense, the bureaucracy, the leadership at those levels, from Ministry of Finance, IRD, NIS, to want to do so.
And they spoke of a lot of red tapes.
Right. And sometimes people get comfortable in their orbit, and they really don't want, for them to merge or intertwine or find common synergies. And we have to push that a lot, because we all live in Grenada. I think we all suffer from those red tape and the challenge. We all talk about it, but then how do we all move in the same direction to eliminate that? Of course, it's my job as the Prime Minister to make sure that we can advocate from a policy level to address those things. But we also need the support of everybody. Chamber, labor union, churches, civil society, to say we want our place to be more efficient, we want to be able to have a higher ranking when it comes to doing business, so that we can invest and have more people invest here.
Wonderful. We have a caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. PM. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, sir.
On the
Good
question
evening.
of doing business, good. On the question of doing business, two things here. With regard to farming and concessions, why don't we have a similar system in place? Like, for example, when I want to apply for a passport, I collect the form, I have the picture, I bring the birth certificate and the necessary information, I bring it to the passport office, and I received my passport or denied my passport. If there's a problem, I'm told. Similarly, with regard to the diaspora, with regard to investments, do we have a system in place? As I understand it, we don't. And it's left to the whims and fancies in some cases of people. But if we have policies and a system in place, then we don't have a problem. One other thing, on the question of returning nationals has a value of 75,000 EC dollars. In Barbados, for example, you have a list of items: 5 TV, 1 bed, 2 shoes, 3 cake mixers. So you have a list of items. I just use that as examples that you can come back with, and then there is no problem whether it is used or new when you come to a customs officer. So we need to put systems in place. Hopefully, are you thinking in that regard?
Thank you, caller.
All right. Well, thank you. So 3 short points. I think, concessions are always, issues that have to be constantly reviewed and evolved. I think first we should accept that there are concessions in place for returning nationals. So there's no question about that. There's a concession desk, and it's processed there, and then persons are able to bring things in. Of course, it's an incentive to encourage nationals who want to come back to Grenada to do so, by essentially saying you can come back and obviously not have to pay taxes and so on associated with that. I should bear in mind that if I'm not a returning national and I leave Grenada and I go out and I come back, I have to pay taxes. So there should really be no complaint about the fact that concessions are actually being granted to returning nationals, because to a large extent they're not granted to Grenadians who travel and bring things in, or Grenadians who stay here and import. That's one. Two, I'm not so sure I quite understand the issue of the concessions with agriculture in relation to the passport. The passport is not a concession. It's a service, and you pay for the passport. For farmers, again, you apply for concessions through the Ministry of Agriculture. It's reviewed and vetted at the Ministry of Agriculture, and then it's sent to the Ministry of Finance for final sign-off and approval, because obviously the Ministry of Finance is responsible for tax, and by extension they will approve the concessions or not. No, and I agree, we obviously want to make a lot of these things as efficient as possible, but it will be a work in progress, and it requires obviously not just political will, but ensuring that we have the right policies and programs in place, and then the technologies to support some of those things.
Okay. We have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Go ahead with your question.
I've been having this prolonged question that I would like the Prime Minister to answer. So I'm going to go ahead and ask him.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Right, so there is a growing public concern about the use of constituency allowances by opposition MPs, as there seems to be little visible impact in some areas. What accountability measures are in place to ensure these funds are properly managed?
All right, thank you. Well, I obviously can't speak for how opposition MPs utilize the constituency allowance that is given to them. I hope that they are using it to impact, both in a visible and perhaps sometimes non-visible manner, for the constituencies who supported them and voted them into office, and gives them the constitutional right to represent all constituents in the office. Certainly for the 10 MPs who are part of the National Democratic Congress, as MPs we are accountable to the Parliament office, and there are guidelines in place as to how the funds can be used, and at the end of the financial period, Parliament will obviously ask for the reports and verify what the funds have been spent or not spent on. But we are clear in our mind that if persons are elected as MPs, they can't be elected and have absolutely no resources to do anything in their constituency, because it then becomes a bit of a farce. And that, I think, points to the maturity of our approach. So that even if someone is an opposition MP, our position is that they were elected by the people, and the office ought to be respected regardless of who the holder is, and they ought to be given some resources to be able to work on behalf of their constituents. We hope that they're doing so. Obviously, our MPs are committed to working as hard as we can on behalf of our constituents.
We have another caller. Good evening, caller. Okay. 423-3104, that's the number to call, or you can send your messages directly. Caller, good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Marilyn. Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you clearly. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm calling from New York, and I just want to know, is there a plan that the government have in regards to healthcare in terms of medication for patients who are admitted to the hospital? It is my understanding, and I have had that experience in the past, where patient's family has to go out to the pharmacies on the outside to purchase medication, which is very expensive. Does the government have a plan for the future as to having free medication in the hospital for the patients?
Okay. Thank you so much, caller.
I think the answer is no. We do not have a plan for free medication. I mean, not even the United States is medication free. We simply, in a small island like Grenada, can't afford to simply give medication for free. There are obviously exceptional cases where, genuinely someone is not able to afford medication, and obviously the medication is alive and the medication is available, and the person is in the hospital, it would be given. I don't think we would deny someone medication in circumstances where it threatens their life or the life of a baby, etc. We have to appreciate that to a large extent healthcare in Grenada is free. People pay for nothing. You don't pay when you go to any of the medical stations or the health centers, and to a large extent you don't pay when you use the general hospital. Persons who do surgeries and so on, to a large extent the fees goes to the surgeon, and a small portion goes to the hospital. But the medication is manufactured, it's costed, it's paid for, it's imported into the country, and we have to be able to recover the cost of the medication.
Okay. We have another caller. Caller, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, my dear.
Welcome.
PM, well, Sherry George here.
Hello, Sherry.
Okay, my question is, people traveling on weekends, like in Canada, from Canada and so, is there like a cambio or something like that could be placed on the airport? So when they come, they can change the money because they may not have time going to the bank on the weekend. Because the bank is not open anyway. So we think about doing that so that people could access money before Monday morning. Thank you very much, my dear.
All right, thank you. Well, I hope the airports authority is listening.
So the Airports Authority. Speaking of the Airports Authority, I really hope that we do a little bit more in terms of the decorations for Spice Mass. I saw a few on my return, and we could do it a little more, make it more inviting for Spice Mass. So I really hope that they'll add some more to it. We have another caller online.
Hello, good night.
Good evening, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. I want to say good night, Aruna. Good night to the Prime Minister. I just have a few remarks, right?
Go ahead.
I just want to say it's a good initiative you're doing to make it open for people to call you and speak to you. I remember in the past you made a statement talking to promoters, and asking the promoters to, treat the local artists better, right? One of the biggest people who facilitate artists in Grenada is Spice Mass. And to be honest with you, the stipends that the Spice Mass give to the artists when they have shows are very minuscule. I want to know if the government is seeking to address this matter so that artists can be treated more fairly when it comes to competition and those things, right? Secondly, with agriculture, right? I think we wasting a lot in Grenada when it comes to the market square and the debris that is gathered from the roadworks. I mean, I have a suggestion that the people who are doing the roadwork, can they be put into cooperatives, right? Make the crown lands available for these people so that they can become farmers, right? And the stuff that they get from the roadwork can it be put into use where we can have a compost, a national compost, right? Saying that, like, there is a part in the market where the produce that is left back after the day, we buy them back for a small fee and take these things, turn them into some kind of product, take those that we cannot refurbish, turn them into the compost.
Okay.
You know, because there's a lot of things that we can be making use of, that we can make some money in Grenada.
Thank you, caller.
So
Let's give
that's
the
my
Prime Minister a
contribution.
chance to respond.
No, thank you. I think the second idea is a brilliant idea, but you know there are limitations to the government. You know, so yes, I agree with the idea. I certainly, it's something I support and I've been talking about. The challenge we have is people have to want to do it, right? So, for example, the persons who work doing the debushing, right? Usually it's no more than 2 or 3 hours that they spend on the side of the road. The rest of the day is available. But farmers still struggle to get farm labor support, right? So the same thing you do in terms of the debushing is the same thing a farmer needs. But the farmers themselves will tell you how difficult it is to get the farm labor support or to get persons to come and do it. So it requires a mindset shift for the entire society to become productive. And 2 hours work and 3 hours work is not going to do it. And that's the challenge we face. And when we talk about things, you know, people say things like, oh, you don't like people who debush. It's not that. To the contrary, it's because I love them. I want to say to you, but you can't survive on 3 or 4 hours of work seasonally, right? You need to actually work 7, 8 hours a day. And to a large extent, the best place to do this, given the skill set, is in fact on farms, is to support the agriculture. And so a lot of times when we talk about agriculture needs to come back, but for it to come back, you need the labor for it to come back. When we had massive plantations of banana, cocoa, nutmeg, especially in the rural parishes, and I'm saying rural parishes today to be most of Grenada, except perhaps the tongue of St. George or the tongue of Grenville, it is because the bulk of the population in one way or the other was involved in actually doing productive work in agriculture. And that is not the case today. So you can't force someone to, you know, go on a farm. We can certainly encourage, we can incentivize, but this is part of what we have to be able to do. On the question of the payment of artists, I was just pointed that even recently, the prize monies for artist performance and ultimately those who win would have been up significantly by Spice Mass Corporation under this administration. And you know, again, people have to remember Spice Mass Corporation gets the money from the taxpayers via subvention for the most part from the government or some sponsors. So we certainly want to encourage and support that. But it is not just Calypsonians. When we talk about artists, we are talking about all Grenadian artists and the need for all of us to do our part to support them. I will conclude by saying the Minister for Culture has in fact tabled a draft policy document to suggest guidelines for the kinds of compensation that local artists could be paid. It is something that we will circulate and engage with stakeholders to get some feedback. I throw out the idea, and I'm going to throw it out here, to the Ministers of Cabinet as to whether or not we should not consider a minimum, I don't want to use the word wage, but I will use it, a minimum wage for artists. Because we have minimum wage for all kinds of occupations. But in the creative sector, it doesn't exist. Obviously, it's something that would have to be debated. We'll have to get feedback from people. But maybe that's one way of ensuring that at least there's a flooring. Whether you tie it to performance or per time or whatever the case is. But we are certainly prepared to try and support as much as possible, us using all funds in Grenada to support more Grenadian artists. It doesn't mean I have anything against artists from the region or internationally coming in.
Okay. We have another call online.
These people expect, that's one. Will there be any retroactive payments paid to these 224 persons?
Caller, can
thank
you
you very
repeat the
much, sir.
question?
That's my question.
I think we probably lost the start of it. Could you the caller left? Okay, we'll have to get back to that question. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Hi. My question is to the Prime Minister for concerning the Bureau of Standard. Now, the Bureau of Standard is there to check on the quality of stuff coming to Grenada. Yet still, when we get the stuff what we have to purchase, we pay so much for it, and half of the stuff don't even last us a few months before we start showing problems. I'm asking if will there ever be a proper Bureau of Standard so we get what we're paying for?
Thank you. I take it the caller is unhappy with the service she's receiving from the Bureau. That's noted. I think obviously it requires us to have discussions with the Bureau of Standards and hear from stakeholders as to what a the specific areas that they think needs to be improved. I believe the Minister for Trade recently indicated that, in fact, a brand new lab has since been installed at the Bureau of Standards. I think that should certainly allow the Bureau, I think, to improve the quality of service that is required. But thank you for the question. I hope the Bureau of Standards, and I want to say this, part of the reason I'm doing the show is because I keep saying, even in government, I find the government to be a secret society, right? And a lot of the persons who run and are responsible for a lot of departments, they can't be found in public. They don't go on shows. They don't explain what the Bureau of Standards is about, what it does, how it can improve service. So we need our public officers who run a lot of the senior specialist institutions within the state, things like the Bureau of Standards, the Produce Chemist Laboratory, to make themselves available to speak to the public. We have the technological tools available now. You have social media, you have radio, you have TV, you have programs like this, where they can go on and engage with the public and explain to them the functions, what their capacities are, what they aren't, because sometimes people have unrealistic expectations as well. So I would use this as a call for the Bureau of Standards, and I will certainly inform the Minister of Trade, who has ultimate responsibility for overseeing them, to use this as an opportunity to engage and have some engagements with the public about the Bureau and what it does, what it doesn't do, and how it can improve its service to the public.
We have another caller. Caller, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Yes.
Welcome.
I have a question for the PM. As we know, we have the hydrocarbon industries coming on stream. I mean, there's been lots of talks in regards to this. I mean, as we know, this has great benefits throughout the world with oil industries. I mean, where has we reached generally with this direction that we're going in that presently? Because since the 1980s, they have been talking about this. I know maybe things have been put in place. I know the PM has been traveling, probably having a lot of discussions and talks with his colleagues in different countries. So just want to know what is the direction we are looking, and how does the possibilities look coming forth for in the next few years.
Thank you, caller.
One last little question. Also there, I also would like to find out, I know somebody would have make a request in regards to polls. As we know that we have a major automotive industry happening right now. As the Prime Minister looks to give any kind of a support in regards to that direction. As we know, Antigua, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, they are using sport and tourism as a part of their drive, the new drive. So just want to find out what is the direction in terms of that.
All right.
As we see if we're going as. No problem.
Okay.
All right, thank you. But perhaps the caller missed the town hall that we had on the oil and gas, where we presented, in a sense, an update on where we are. So I will try and be as short. In short order, we've put together a technical working group led by the former Minister of Finance, Nazim Buk. Their mandate is to basically assess the extent of Grenada's hydrocarbon potential. If we find that we have, to then be able to make sure that Grenada enters into the necessary arrangements with those who have the resources and technical capacity to exploit and develop the hydrocarbons for the benefit of Grenadians. That requires a lot of resources. It requires a lot of technical expertise. It requires, obviously, we're an island that is beautiful. It requires us making sure that in doing so we can also protect the God-given beauty of Grenada. So where we are is that we are pursuing it. We are pursuing it aggressively, but it requires a lot of scientific studies, seismic studies, 3D studies, and then it requires people who know the business to be able to tell you, yes, this study says you have, and then you have to get people with hundreds of millions of dollars who are going to drill wells into the sea to be able to then exploit the gas or the oil, and then be able to obviously engage in necessary revenue sharing and so on. But we are a significant way off from being there just yet. And on supporting the automotive industry, I think it means the sporting business. I think we would be happy to do so. I know that there's a private association of
yes.
that, and Pearls has been sort of the one place where obviously we have anything akin to a road that they can do that here. So I'm sure once they're able to sort of say what kind of support they would like from the government, we would certainly consider it.
Okay. We are quickly running out of time, but I think we can squeeze another call. Good evening, caller.
Yes, good afternoon, Aruna.
Hi, welcome.
Afternoon, our beloved Prime Minister.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for hosting this. I am Ellen calling you from New York.
Hi, Ellen.
Quick question, Mr. Prime Minister. With regards to St. David is such a big parish. Virgin, because it hasn't been touched for so many years. You being the Prime Minister and being the MP for St. David, would you support a referendum to have St. David split in two, having a north and south, like we have the big parish having 4 MPs?
I think it's a valid point because it's not just a big parish, it's probably becoming quickly the fastest growing parish by population. And I think the last voters list had something like 10,000 registered voters. The only other constituency close to that would have been South, which also has a large population and significant economic activity. So I think as part of the electoral boundaries reform, that is part of what we may have to consider. But it's something that would require obviously all the stakeholders to engage and to be done in a manner that is non-controversial. Because anytime you're talking about realigning boundaries and districts and so on, people may always feel you're trying to do it for your benefit and so on. So in the meantime, as a sole MP, I'm happy to work hard on behalf of all of the thousands of St. David's residents.
So we have another caller. Good evening, caller. I did say one more, but let's squeeze this one. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Good evening, Prime Minister Kadela here. Prime Minister, I just want to touch on something that's very passionate to me, and this is regional travel. Personally, I think that it is time our regional heads of government sit together and try to put together a plan to make regional tourism something that everyone across the Caribbean can enjoy. Currently, Prime Minister, it is just way too expensive to move from country to country within the Caribbean. It is much cheaper every day for a lot of us to go to the United States on vacation and to move from the Leeward Islands to the Leeward Islands. And I really think that that in itself can hinder a lot of growth and development within our region, and especially Grenada, which in my view, based on the prices that I'm seeing for tickets, attracts some of the highest rates across the region. So if something can be looked into this, I really think that it would help us in Grenada to boost our tourism and to get a lot of people out there into that for to come back home, not only for Carnival, some of the times where we have some of the activities, but at least to come home anytime anyone feels to come and just to visit our family and friends.
Thank you so much, caller.
Thank you. So I agree with the caller. I just want to emphasize that, in fact, regional heads have spent an enormous amount of time. Since I've been Prime Minister, I've gone to a lot of meetings solely on this issue. In fact, there's a head of a financial institution who regionally was trying to help us. And I felt they fired him because of that. This might be a controversial thing to say, and regionally they might quote me after I said that. But there are also structural impediments that sometimes make us fight against each other. Right, and you heard a comment about it is easier to go to Miami and it is easier to go to New York. Some of those things are not simple. It's designed actually to impoverish us so that we don't trade amongst ourselves, we don't travel amongst ourselves, and we use economics as an excuse by saying it's cheaper to go to Miami, it's cheaper to go to New York, rather than to fight for ourselves and for our own growth and development. So I talked about earlier the fact that there is a Grenadian entity here that has made a proposal, which we are considering, about how we actually could start from Grenada the possibility of improving air connectivity within the region. So yes, it's too expensive, and we know if it doesn't get cheaper, people will simply not travel. So they say it's a chicken and egg situation, but I think we know we have to invest in having the capacity. So I agree with you, but I can tell you, heads have spent a lot of time on this at CARICOM level, at the OECS level. What we know is that the governments can't run an airline. And you see what happened with GATT because of excessive government involvement. So we really also need the private sector to be able to step up and partner with us to be able to make this happen. There are actually a lot of airlines, there's Inter-Caribbean, there's a number of others within the region. The challenge is how do they also work together to lower the prices to make sure it's more affordable for our citizens.
Okay. We have a DM from Monique T. Cujo, and she says, "Hi, PM, can you call election?"
Hi, Monique. I think Monique has election to banker. But wait, don't worry, Monique. All in the fullness of time.
All in the fullness of time. And speaking of time, that is all the time we have this week. And again, our apologies for the late start. Hopefully next Tuesday, we will kick off without any disruptions whatsoever. Fingers crossed, but when you're dealing with these things, sometimes it happens. So hopefully next Tuesday, we'll be back for another show. Mr. PM, final words before we leave?
Right. I just want to thank you for being here with us this afternoon. I want to say to all of Grenada, thank you again for tuning in and for giving me the opportunity to interact and answer and respond to the questions. We are happy to continue doing so. Be mindful that as we enter June, we are virtually in the Atlantic hurricane season, so we need to take our disaster preparedness or disaster mitigation seriously. I want to make a general call to all of us in the community to help our NOASA, help our GrenLec, help our Digicel and Flow, help our schools, help our shelters to be ready. There's still significant overgrowth, especially in the rural areas, where you have large trees and so on that potentially, if we have landslides or rainfall, will damage lines and so on. We have to do a lot of tree trimming and so on. But to do all of this, it will require a national effort. So we're hoping to partner with NADMA to raise the sensitivity and to get volunteers and supporters to come out and help us address some of those things. We need to clean up our rivers. We need to start unblocking the drains. So we need to take a wholesale approach to our own safety and security during the Atlantic season. So please let us make sure that we learn the lessons from Beryl, that we implement the necessary protocols that we need to make sure that we are safe and sound and that our loved ones are around in the event anything would happen. I think we're all praying, obviously, that we have an uneventful Atlantic hurricane season. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. PM, and thank you so much to our viewers on YouTube and, of course, our viewers on Facebook. Thank you so much for keeping it interactive. And we want to say special thanks to those of you who sent in your DMs, those of you who called. Thank you so much to the radio stations and everyone who accommodated this show this evening. And, of course, next week we'll be back with another episode, and hopefully you can join us then. Until then, thank you so much. This has been another edition of DMs with PM. Thank you so much to the technical crew, and we shall see you guys next week.